everyone, and welcome to the show. Have you ever felt like you're watching life pass you by? Like there's this invisible wall between you and all the things you want to do and be. What if the only thing really stopping you is, well, you?
Oh, that's such a relatable feeling, isn't it? I mean, we all have these dreams and goals, but
Yeah,
so often it feels like it's our own fears and doubts that are holding us back.
exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this awesome self-help book that gives you actual tools to build up that courage you need to break through those mental barriers, both in your work life and your personal life.
Totally. And if that sounds like something you need in your life right now, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives like this one on resources that can help you really level up your life.
So the book we're exploring today is called Find Your Courage, 12 Acts for Becoming Fearless at Work and in Life by Margie Warrell.
Yeah, and you can find a link to it on Amazon down in the description.
And this isn't just your typical, like, think positive and everything will magically work out kind of book.
Mm.
It's more of a practical guide that lays out 12 specific actions you can take to confront those fears and move past them.
It's like a roadmap for becoming bolder.
Exactly. And we're going to break down some of the core ideas today that can really change how you see your own potential. Because honestly, so much of it comes down to how we view ourselves and the world around us.
So true.
So the mission for this deep dive, especially for you listening right now, is to extract the gold from this book, the most impactful insights, so you can see how taking full ownership of your life, living by your true values, questioning those narratives you keep telling yourself, and actually daring to dream big can all come together to make your life way more courageous and fulfilling.
I love that. And speaking of taking ownership, that's actually where the book starts, this whole idea of radical responsibility.
Yeah, and it's so foundational,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Worrell really drives home the point that until you fully embrace responsibility for where you are in life, the good and the bad, you're basically giving away your power to change things.
It's like you're stuck in the passenger seat instead of taking the wheel.
Exactly. And by blaming external factors, like circumstances or other people, you're actually avoiding looking at your own role and how things turned out.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you miss the chance to actually make real and lasting changes.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by just wiping up the water instead of actually figuring out where the leak is coming from.
The perfect analogy.
And she gives these super relatable examples, right? Like, let's say you're unhappy with your career progress. Instead of just pointing the finger at your boss or complaining about the HR department, you start to look at your own skills, your own initiatives, your networking efforts. Or maybe you're struggling financially. Instead of just blaming the banks or the economy, you turn the lens inward and examine your spending habits and saving strategies.
Right. It's about recognizing that even though external factors definitely play a role, we always have a choice in how we respond and what actions we take.
And it even applies to personal relationships. Like, if you had a boring evening with your partner, instead of just blaming them for not being interesting enough, you might consider how much you actually contributed to the conversation. Did you actively engage and ask questions, or were you just kind of passively sitting there?
It's so easy to fall into the trap of blaming others, but taking responsibility is about empowering yourself to create change.
Absolutely. And the book actually dives into some pretty interesting psychological aspects of this whole responsibility thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, she talks about this concept called a perceptual defense mechanism, which is basically our brain's way of shielding us from unpleasant realities that might challenge our self-image or make us feel uncomfortable.
It's like our minds build up these walls to protect us from things that are hard to face.
Exactly. And it can show up in little ways, like maybe you constantly make excuses for a friend's unreliable behavior because actually confronting them feels too difficult. Or it can manifest in more serious ways, like ignoring persistent physical symptoms, because acknowledging them would bring up a lot of fear and anxiety.
Right. And while avoiding these things might provide some temporary relief from discomfort, it ultimately stops us from addressing the real issues and actually taking steps to make things better.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a deep cut. It might cover it up for a bit, but it doesn't actually heal the wound.
And the example of ignoring health problems is so important because it really highlights how this avoidance can have some pretty serious long-term consequences.
It's a reminder that sometimes facing those uncomfortable truths head on, even though it's hard, can save us a lot of pain down the road.
So true.
All right, so let's move on to the second foundational act, living with integrity.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is, and it goes way beyond just like being honest in your dealings with other people, right? It seems
Ah,
to be about something much deeper.
absolutely. It's about wholeness, a complete alignment between What you believe deep down is right and how you actually show up in the world. But it goes even further than that. It's also about the congruence between your authentic self, who you truly are at your core, and the person you present to the world.
So it's not just about being honest with others, but also being honest with yourself.
Exactly. It's about honoring your unique talents, your values, and that inner compass that guides you, even if those things don't always line up with external pressures or expectations.
So you might be a really talented artist, but you're stuck in a corporate job that you hate because you're afraid to pursue your true passion.
That's a perfect example. It's like there's this inner conflict between what you know you're meant to do and what you're actually doing.
Hmm.
And that lack of alignment can create a lot of internal turmoil and prevent you from experiencing true fulfillment.
She has this really powerful story in the book about a guy named Bob who had a brief affair early in his marriage. He kept it a secret for years because he thought he was protecting his wife from pain. But carrying that secret around created this huge internal conflict that started to seep into every aspect of their relationship. It wasn't just about the past act of infidelity, but the ongoing choice to live in a way that wasn't fully honest and transparent with his partner, and that really eroded the foundation of trust and intimacy in their marriage.
It's like that saying, we are only as sick as our secrets.
Exactly. And eventually, Bob found the courage to reveal his infidelity to his wife. And even though it was incredibly painful for her at first, it actually ended up being a turning point for the relationship. It allowed them to start rebuilding on a more authentic foundation of honesty and trust.
That's so powerful.
It really highlights how confronting those difficult truths, even though it can be incredibly painful in the short term, can ultimately lead to greater healing and deeper connection in the long run.
It's about choosing the long-term well-being of the relationship over the short-term comfort of keeping things hidden.
And the book also talks about this idea of the integrity of the spirit. Like, in our busy lives, we often get so caught up in external achievements and meeting expectations that we lose touch with that deeper wisdom within us.
Right. And sometimes those intuitive nudges or feelings try to surface, but we ignore them or push them down because they might lead us towards changes that we're not quite ready to make.
It's like we're silencing that inner voice that's trying to guide us towards our most authentic path.
And that can lead to a sense of feeling lost or unfulfilled,
But
even if everything on the outside looks like it's going well. It's a reminder that true fulfillment isn't just about checking off boxes and achieving external goals. It's also about living a life that feels aligned with our core values and our true selves.
all right, so let's delve into the third foundational act, challenging your stories.
Oh, this is such a good one.
This is where it gets really interesting. Because it's all about recognizing that the beliefs and interpretations we hold about ourselves and the world actually shape the reality we experience.
Yes. It's like we're constantly telling ourselves these stories about who we are, what we're capable of, and how life works. And those stories become so ingrained that we start to accept them as absolute truths without ever questioning if they're actually true.
Like that classic limiting belief, I'm just not good with money, it runs in my family. Or the cynical view that all managers are just idiots who got promoted because they're good at playing politics.
We've all heard those kinds of stories, and maybe even told ourselves a few of them. But the problem is, these negative or limiting stories can create a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you're bad with money, you might subconsciously make choices that reinforce that belief. Or if you believe all managers are incompetent, you might not even bother trying to get promoted because you assume it's a rigged system.
It's like you're trapped in this negative feedback loop where your beliefs shape your actions and your actions reinforce your beliefs.
And it's so subtle, we often don't even realize we're doing it.
And the book talks about how we often fall into this linguistic trap where we treat our opinions as if they were objective facts.
Oh yeah, like saying traffic is always terrible, as if it's a universal law, when in reality it's just your personal experience based on a specific time and day.
Exactly. And it's not just about traffic. It can be about anything, like saying, my boss never appreciates my work, or I'm just not a creative person. These sweeping generalizations, even if we believe them to be true, can really limit our potential because they close us off to alternative possibilities.
It's like we're putting ourselves in a box.
So how do we start to challenge these limiting stories?
Well, the first step is becoming aware of them. Start paying attention to the thoughts and beliefs that pop up automatically, especially when you're feeling stuck or discouraged. Ask yourself, is this really true, or is it just a story I've been telling myself?
And she also talks about this really important concept called grounding your stories.
Yeah, that's about taking a step back and objectively evaluating the evidence that supports your beliefs versus the evidence that might contradict them.
Like, if you believe you're bad with money, look at your actual spending habits. Are you really making an effort to budget and save, or are you just impulsively spending without much thought?
Right. And if you believe your boss never appreciates your work, think about specific instances where they might have acknowledged your contributions, even if it wasn't in the way you were expecting.
It's about being willing to see things from a different perspective and challenge those automatic assumptions.
And sometimes, those limiting stories are rooted in really deep-seated beliefs that stem from our past experiences.
Like in the book, there's this poignant story about Martin who grew up with a really critical and abusive father. As a result, he developed this deeply ingrained belief that he was worthless and stupid.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. And those beliefs stayed with him for years, impacting his self-esteem and his relationships. It wasn't until he started therapy and began to actively challenge those negative stories that he was able to start healing and building a more positive self-image.
It's a reminder that those early life experiences, especially the painful ones, can have a huge impact on how we see ourselves. But the good news is, we can rewrite those stories.
Absolutely. And it often takes a lot of courage and support to do so.
Okay, are we ready to tackle the final act? The courage to dream bigger.
Let's do it. This is where things start to get really exciting.
Because dreaming big can be both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Totally. It's like this mix of possibility and fear all rolled into one.
Exactly. The act of actually envisioning a future that's significantly different from your present reality can trigger a lot of vulnerability, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, the whole shebang.
It's like you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and into this vast unknown.
But here's the thing, the people who actually achieve their dreams, they're not immune to those fears. They just develop the courage to take action despite them.
They don't let the fear stop them.
And the book gives this inspiring example of Brenda. She was an attorney who had always dreamed of having her own small, client-focused law practice. But it seemed like this distant, maybe even unrealistic goal.
So what changed?
Well, once she actually started to clearly envision the specifics of that practice, the type of clients she wanted to work with, the atmosphere she wanted to create, the values she wanted to embody, an unexpected opportunity presented itself.
It's like the universe was listening.
Right. And she was able to take that opportunity and turn it into the first concrete step towards building her dream practice.
So the lesson here is don't just keep those dreams vague and fuzzy. Get really specific and detailed.
Exactly. Because when you have a clear vision, it's easier to identify the actions you need to take to get there. Plus, you become more attuned to recognizing and seizing opportunities that might have otherwise passed you by.
It's like you're sending out a signal to the universe. This is what I want. Bring it on.
So true. And the book also talks about this cultural phenomenon called the tall poppy syndrome.
I've heard of that. It's basically the idea that people try to cut down those who stand out or achieve success.
Yep. It's like this weird cultural aversion to celebrating others' achievements.
And internally, we often have our own small poppy committee, that inner voice of self-doubt that tries to sabotage our big ideas before we even have a chance to get started.
Totally. It's like our own internal critic whispering, "Who do you think you are to dream so big? You're going to fail."
Ugh, that voice can be so loud sometimes.
It can. And the book really encourages us to recognize those external and internal forces that are trying to hold us back and to cultivate the courage to defy them.
And she has this great story about the founders of Intrepid Travel. They took a huge risk to create this completely new kind of travel experience, even though everyone was telling them it wouldn't work.
I love that story.
It's so inspiring. They faced so much skepticism and market challenges, but they believed in their vision and they persevered. And now they've built this incredibly successful company that's changing the way people travel.
It just shows that sometimes you have to go against the grain and trust your gut, even when everyone else is telling you you're crazy.
And there's this key takeaway from this section that I think is so important. Dreams are only ever a direction, not a fixed destination.
Oh, that's good.
It's more about the journey of striving towards something meaningful than it is about reaching a specific endpoint.
Because often it's the journey itself where the real growth and fulfillment happen. It's the challenges we overcome, the lessons we learn, and the person we become along the way.
Exactly. And if you get too fixated on a specific outcome, you might miss out on those unexpected opportunities or even the joy of the process itself.
Right. It's about being open to the detours and the unexpected twists and turns that life throws our way.
And the book also talks about how dreaming bigger isn't just about personal gain. It can also be about making a positive impact on the world. Like she mentions Bono using his fame to advocate for causes he believes in.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential to use our unique talents and resources to create positive change, even in small ways.
Then there's the cautionary tale of Eric. He achieved a lot of financial success, but he still felt deeply unfulfilled.
It's the classic example of having all the external trappings of success, but still feeling empty inside.
Right. And it highlights how true fulfillment doesn't come from external achievements alone. It comes from aligning our external pursuits with our internal values and our sense of purpose.
It's about finding that sweet spot where what you do in the world aligns with who you are at your core.
And to help readers connect with their deeper passions and start to articulate those bigger dreams, the book suggests creating a dream board.
I love dream boards. They're such a powerful visual tool for bringing your aspirations to life.
It's like creating a tangible representation of your future self.
And the act of actually choosing images and words that resonate with your desires can really help to solidify your vision and make it feel more real and achievable.
Plus, it's a fun and creative exercise that can help you tap into your subconscious desires.
And the whole section on dreaming bigger concludes by emphasizing this key point, which is that daring to envision a bigger future for yourself ultimately leads to becoming a bigger person.
It's like you're expanding your capacity for growth and fulfillment.
Exactly. It's about stretching beyond those self-imposed limitations and stepping into a more expansive and authentic version of yourself.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into some of the key insights from Find Your Courage by Margie Warrell.
It's been such a great conversation. I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to cultivate more courage in their own lives.
We would love to hear from you. What was your biggest aha moment or takeaway from our discussion today? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.
And if you're feeling inspired to explore these concepts further, definitely check out the full book. You can find the link in the description.
And as a final thought, we want to leave you with this question. What's one small, courageous step you can take today in any of the areas we've discussed? What might be possible if you started acting as if you were already the courageous person you aspire to be?
It's amazing how even small acts of courage can create a ripple effect in our lives.
So go out there and be bold. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into resources that can help you unlock your full potential.
Thanks for joining us.
See you in the next one.